My fiancée was handing out theme park tickets to all the kids. When she got to my son, sorry, we miscounted. Then she smiled and handed the extras to her nephew's friends, while my son watched. I didn't react. I just quietly. She handed a ticket to Tyler. She handed a ticket to Tyler's friend Mason. She handed one to a kid named Brody. She crouched down, very ceremoniously, and handed one to a child everyone called Biscuit, whose real name, to this day, nobody has ever explained to me. Then she got to Caleb, my 8-year-old son, who had been awake since 5:45 in the morning because he was that excited, and she smiled this tight little smile and said, "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. We miscounted." Then she turned around and handed the 2 remaining tickets to Tyler's other friends. Caleb watched. He didn't cry. He just looked down at his hands. He folded the front of his shirt up a little, then let it go. He's 8. He already knew, and I didn't say a single word. I just quietly took out my phone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you all the way back, because without the full picture, what I did next sounds unhinged. And I need you to understand that it was, in fact, completely proportional. My name is Marcus Webb, 34 years old, Louisville, Kentucky. And I have worked as a regional sales representative for a commercial printing and promotional products company for going on 9 years. We do banners, branded merchandise, custom signage, event materials. If a business needs their logo on something, anything, I am the person who makes that happen. I make $67,000 base plus commission. I've won the Regional Sales Award 3 years running, and I am deeply, specifically, professionally good at my job. I know every printer, every vinyl cutter, every embroidery house, every fulfillment warehouse within 200 miles of Louisville. I know lead times. I know quantities. I know what things look like when they arrive and exactly how long they take to get there. This becomes important later. Please remember this. I have one son, Caleb James Webb. He's 8. He's got his mother's eyes and my stubbornness. And he has been the entire reason I've gotten out of bed every morning since his mom and I split when he was 3. He stays with me 4 days a week. He has strong opinions about chicken nuggets, strong opinions about Minecraft. He reads the nutrition labels on cereal boxes purely out of personal interest, not because anyone told him to. He told me once that clouds are just tired water taking a break. And when I said that was actually not scientifically accurate, he looked at me and said, "I know, Dad. It's a metaphor," in a tone that made me feel 12 years old. He's good. He's genuinely one of the good ones. I started dating Diane Kowalski about 2.5 years ago. She's 32. She works in HR at a logistics company downtown. And when I met her at a mutual friend's cookout, she was funny and direct and kind in a way that felt real. Not performed. Not strategic. She met Caleb 4 months in, and for the first year, I genuinely thought we were building something solid. She was patient with him. She asked him real questions. She came to one of his soccer games and cheered with the embarrassing enthusiasm of someone who cared about the outcome. She proposed to me, actually, on a Tuesday night in my kitchen. She had a ring she'd picked out herself, and she was nervous. And I said yes before she even finished the sentence. I was happy. I want to put that on record before this story goes where it goes. I was genuinely happy. But Diane has a sister named Sandra, 35, lives about 20 minutes away from us, married to a man named Phil, who I watched exist in various rooms for over 2 years without ever once seeing him carry his own plate to the sink. Sandra and Phil have a son named Tyler, who is 10. Tyler is a normal kid, regular kid. Nothing wrong with Tyler. The problem is not Tyler. The problem is what Tyler represents in the cosmology of that family, which is the sun, the absolute center. Every holiday decision, every weekend plan, every dinner table seating arrangement, Tyler is the gravitational force that everything else bends around. Tyler's baseball schedule was a family logistics operation. Tyler's report cards were group chat events. When Tyler got a lead in the school play, Sandra printed a flyer, an actual printed flyer, with Tyler's headshot. And Caleb? Caleb was a moon that family had technically acknowledged, but never fully mapped. Here's the thing about Diane that took me the longest to see clearly. She had 2 sets of rules. one for her family's kids, one for everyone else's. And the gap between those sets of rules was quiet enough that I kept finding reasons to explain it away. Tyler would interrupt dinner 3 times, and she'd laugh it off. Caleb would politely ask to be excused, and she'd give him this look. Not a mean look, just a measuring look, like she was calculating something. Tyler always got a souvenir at family outings. Automatic, never discussed. Somewhere between $12 and $20 just pulled from her wallet without a second thought. Caleb asked once, at a farmer's market in September, if he could get one of those little wooden carved animals at one of the booths. $8. She said, "Let's see how the day goes." Caleb put it back on the table and didn't ask again. That moment sat in me for weeks. The birthday parties nearly broke me. Tyler turned 10, and Sandra and Diane co-organized this laser tag extravaganza. $400 just for the venue rental, full catered food spread, custom jersey for every kid in the party. And Diane spent 2 full weekends on it. Genuinely happy to do it. Genuinely invested. Caleb's 8th birthday was 4 months later. Diane handed me a Walmart gift card for $50 and said, "I figured you'd want to handle it your way." Which, fine. I did handle it. I threw Caleb a Minecraft birthday party at a Cracker Barrel meeting room that I rented for $35, and every single child at that party had the time of their lives, and the cake was shaped like a creeper, and I am proud of every single aspect of that birthday. But that's not the point. The point is the difference. The distance between those 2 birthdays measured in warmth. For 14 months, I watched this. 14 months of small things stacking on top of each other. I kept telling myself it was normal blended family adjustment. I told myself she just needed time to get there, that these things don't happen overnight, that Caleb was fine. And Caleb was fine because Caleb is resilient and wonderful. But resilience is not the same thing as it being acceptable. Caleb shouldn't have to be resilient about this. He's 8. Nobody told me that when you absorb enough without saying anything, the other person stops registering that there's anything to say. And then the theme park happened. It was Diane's idea. She brought it up in June. "Let's do something fun with the kids before school starts back. Kings Island, maybe?" And I said yes immediately. I was genuinely excited. I offered to pay for Caleb's ticket, offered to contribute to the group, whatever made sense. She said she and Sandra were handling it. Don't worry about it. The Saturday morning we left, Caleb was up at 5:45. He had his outfit planned. His robot shirt, his favorite, the gray one with the little astronaut robot on the pocket. He ate 2 bowls of cereal because he had read, somewhere on YouTube, that you should carb load before a day of heavy walking. He's 8. He researched theme park preparation. He was so excited it was physically visible on him, the way excitement is on a kid who hasn't learned to pretend it isn't there yet. We drove up, the full group, me, Diane, Caleb, Sandra, Phil, who spent the entire drive in the passenger seat playing a mobile game I couldn't identify. Tyler, and Tyler's 3 travel baseball teammates, Mason, Brody, and Biscuit. I did not ask about the name Biscuit. I sensed it was not the right moment. We got to the gate. Diane reached into her bag. She handed a ticket to Tyler, 1 to Mason, 1 to Brody. Then she crouched down and very specifically, with this whole little gesture of warmth, handed 1 to Biscuit. Then she stood up, turned to Caleb, and made the face. The specific face. Head tilt, tight smile, the preemptive apology posture of someone who has already decided what they're going to say. "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry, we miscounted." And then, before Caleb could process it, before I could say anything, before anyone could react, she turned around and handed the 2 remaining tickets to Mason and Brody's mothers, who had decided that morning to tag along, and for whom, apparently, Diane had planned and accounted with great care. The extras went to 2 adults who showed up at the last minute. My son stood at that gate with nothing. 4 words. "We miscounted." That's all it took. Caleb looked down. He folded the front of his robot shirt up, held it for a second, and let it go. He didn't cry. He didn't make a sound. He just looked at his hands like he was doing some internal calculation about what this meant and what it changed. He's 8. And he already knew the answer. Something happened inside me that wasn't anger. Anger is hot. This was the opposite. This was cold and clear and very still. Like when a sound you've been hearing for so long you forgot it was there just stops. and the silence is suddenly the loudest thing in the room. I bought Caleb's ticket at the window with my own card. Said nothing to Diane. We went in. I spent the entire day with my son. Every ride he pointed at, every food stand he looked at twice, a whole round of that ring toss game where I spent $12 in quarters to win him a stuffed dinosaur the size of a throw pillow. It was a genuinely good day. He had a great day. He kept saying, "Dad, this is so good," with this particular kind of sincerity that children have before they learn to be cool about things. On the drive home, Caleb fell asleep in the back seat. Diane was driving. I looked out the window at the dark highway, and I thought about 14 months. The swim party, where Tyler got to pick the floats, and Caleb was told to use whatever was left. The Christmas seating, where Caleb ended up at the kids' table alone because Tyler's cousins took all the other spots. The way she said, "your son," sometimes, specifically when he was being inconvenient, and Caleb when he was being charming. The gift card, the face at the gate, the 2 tickets going to adults who showed up that morning. I thought about all of it. And then I stopped thinking and just decided. That night, after I put Caleb to bed, I went to my home office. I sat down at my computer and I started typing. Okay, so here is where I need you to stay with me. I am going to need you to hear this in full before you form your opinion, because taken out of context, it sounds like something a person does when they have snapped completely in half. But I want you to understand that I was, at every stage of what follows, calm, organized, operating with complete professional clarity. I am a printing and promotional product salesperson. I know how to take complex information and present it in a compelling, well-formatted, visually accessible way. I have been doing this for 9 years. This is my skill set. I applied my skill set. I made a document. When I say a document, I need you to stop picturing whatever you're picturing because it's too small. You're picturing a letter, maybe a few pages, maybe a numbered list with some bullet points and a conclusion paragraph. That is not what I made. I made the Caleb Exclusion Index, a comprehensive review of selective attendance, resource allocation discrepancies, and ticket math failures Q122 through Q3224. It had a cover page. It had a table of contents. It had section headers. It had footnotes. There was an executive summary. 1 page, tight, professional, designed to give the reader full context before diving into the primary materials. There was an appendix. It was 31 pages, and I wrote it in one sitting, fueled by decaf coffee and 14 months of mental receipts that I had apparently been filing with remarkable, unconscious precision. Section 1 was titled Documented Instances of Differential Treatment in Group Settings. It listed, with dates, the birthday party situation, 3 separate holiday events, the farmer's market wooden animals incident, and the July 4th cookout, where Tyler got the first hot dog off the grill every single time because he's picky. There was a subsection. Section 2 was financial analysis of equitable resource distribution. It was a spreadsheet embedded directly into the document, comparing what had been spent on Tyler's activities against what had been offered or allocated toward Caleb across 22 months. I used my company's data visualization templates. The bar graphs were professionally formatted. The trend line was not good for anyone's defense. Section 3 was simply called the ticket incident. It was 1 page, 12-point font, wide margins. I let it breathe. I did not editorialize. I just described what happened in sequence, with timeline notations. The final section was called Recommendations. It contained 3 lines. Address the child directly and genuinely. Do not miscount when the child is watching. Consider whether the word miscounted is something that can be unsaid once a child has heard it. I believe that last line was my finest professional work. Here's where a reasonable person might expect me to have sent this document privately to Diane. As a difficult but honest conversation starter, a vulnerable moment of written communication between 2 adults who needed to talk. I had it commercially printed and comb-bound. I work in printing. I have a coworker named Janelle who runs our shop floor. Janelle has the focused, quiet energy of a woman who has already thought through the 17 ways something could go wrong and decided she's handled it. I walked in Monday morning, handed her the file on a USB drive, and said, 47 copies, cream cover stock, comb binding. She pulled up the file. She looked at the title page. She looked at me. She said, very carefully, section headers or no? I said, section headers. Yes. She said, 2 hours. I said, thank you. I did not explain to Janelle what this was for. I did not need to. Janelle operates on a need-to-know basis and apparently determined that she did not need to know. 2 hours later, 47 bound copies of the Caleb Exclusion Index were in a cardboard box on my desk. Cream cover stock. The lettering sat clean and even on every copy. I held one. I am not going to pretend I didn't feel a specific professional pride about the quality of the product, because I did. Then I pulled up the guest list from our engagement party, the one Diane and I had assembled together 8 months earlier. Every family member from both sides, every close friend who'd been invited and attended and signed the little guest book Diane had picked out. I cross-referenced it with addresses. I am a sales rep. I have a CRM. I know how address lists work. 47 recipients. 47 padded envelopes, each one individually addressed, each one labeled in the return address field from the office of Caleb's dad, with a cover letter. The cover letter was one paragraph. It said, enclosed, please find a document I believe may be of interest to you. No response is required or expected. Thank you for your time. I dropped the box at our outgoing mail station Tuesday morning. What I did not know was that Janelle, operating entirely on her own initiative, without my knowledge, without discussion, had upgraded all 47 envelopes to priority mail, with individual tracking numbers. I found this out when 47 tracking notifications hit my phone simultaneously at 9:14 a.m. and continued arriving for the next 5 hours. I genuinely did not plan that part. I want to be transparent with you. The tracking was entirely Janelle. The envelopes arrived Tuesday. Diane was at work. Her mother, Carol, a woman I had always found pleasant but slightly difficult to read, was home. Carol called Diane at 9:22 a.m. I know the exact timestamp because Diane described this call to me in full detail later, eating a granola bar, actively crying in a tone I can only describe as reporting from a disaster zone. According to Diane, Carol opened the envelope. Carol read the cover letter. Carol turned to the table of contents. Carol sat down. Then Carol called Diane. Diane answered and said, hello? And Carol said, and this is verbatim, Diane, there is a table of contents. Then Carol hung up and went back to reading. The family group chat, which I had, for completely unrelated reasons that I will not get into, removed myself from 3 weeks prior, went, by all accounts, entirely to pieces around 45 minutes after delivery began. I received a running update from my mother, Patricia, who was in the group chat and called me at 11 a.m. with the wide, stunned energy of a woman processing something in real time by talking about it. Marcus, she said, there are people on page 14. I asked what was on page 14. She said, the swim party chart. Then she was quiet for a second. Then she said very carefully, Marcus, your footnotes are very thorough. She said it the way you say something when you don't want to land anywhere specific, but you also absolutely cannot stop thinking about what you've just read. Diane's Aunt Loretta, who lives in Memphis, who I have met exactly twice, who gave me a handshake the first time that I am still thinking about, received her copy at 1:17 p.m. Central Time. At 12:02 p.m., she posted to the family group chat. Not a reaction, not a comment on another message, just a standalone post. I am on page 14. Everyone else, please stay off page 14 until you have finished section 2. That message got 11 replies inside 4 minutes. By 2 p.m., my brother-in-law Phil, who I watched exist in this family for over 2 years without contributing meaningfully to a single conversation, apparently read the document in his car in the driveway, then came inside and told Sandra, and I quote, some of the footnotes cite Sandra by name. Sandra confirmed this to me later. Phil's response to reading his wife's name in a professionally bound index of family dysfunction was to make himself a sandwich and think about it quietly. I respect that response more than I expected to. Here's where it got away from me in a way I could not have predicted, even with full access to my own organizational abilities. Diane's cousin Tiffany is 26 and works at a FedEx office location in Nashville, not connected to me, not connected to our company. A completely independent FedEx office in a city I had not mailed anything to. At 3:15 p.m., Tiffany texted my number, which she had from a group birthday text 8 months ago, and said, "So someone just brought something into my store to make copies of, and I wasn't going to say anything, but the cover page has a name I recognize. Is this yours?" She sent a photo. It was the Caleb Exclusion Index. Someone had received their copy, driven to Nashville, or was already in Nashville, the geography is unclear, and brought it to a FedEx office to make additional copies. I do not know who this person is. I do not know which family member or family adjacent person they are. I do not know what they plan to do with the copies. To this day, nobody has claimed it. The document had self-replicated and traveled to a city I had not targeted. Tiffany told me, and I want to be precise here, that the customer requested 12 additional copies and asked whether the comb binding could be upgraded to spiral. The answer, for the record, is yes. Spiral holds up better long-term. I don't know why they needed 12. At some point that evening, I cannot tell you the exact time because I was not monitoring social media, someone posted a photograph of the cover page and the table of contents to a Facebook group for Louisville area parents. The caption was 4 words. He combound it. It received 412 reactions before Diane's second cousin spotted it and sent Diane the screenshot. Diane found out about the Facebook post at approximately 6 p.m. while sitting in a parking lot. I don't know which parking lot. She didn't specify, and I didn't feel it was the moment to ask. By 7 p.m., the document had a name in the family group chat and apparently in several adjacent group chats of people I have never met. Multiple people, independently, were calling it the report, not the Caleb Exclusion Index. The report, as in, have you read the report yet? As in, my mom called me from a Kroger parking lot to tell me about the report. As in, someone in a Nashville FedEx office was making additional copies of the report for a person whose identity remains one of the great mysteries of my adult life. Sandra, Diane's sister, the co-architect of the original Ticket Math, who had been Diane's closest ally since before either of them was old enough to have allies, called me directly at 7:44 p.m. I let it ring. She called again immediately. I let it ring again. She texted, "I read the whole thing. Call me when you can." I did not call her. 3 minutes later, she texted again. "The swim party chart is accurate. I was there. I know it's accurate." I want to be completely honest with you. I did not expect that. I had built, in my mind, a reasonable expectation of what the antagonist's camp would do. I expected anger. I expected defensive outrage. I expected a coalition. I did not expect Diane's own sister to read 31 pages and arrive at, "Yeah, this is correct." And I did not expect Carol. Carol called me at 9 p.m. Diane's mother, a woman I had assumed was calling to discuss what I should do differently and perhaps what was wrong with me as a person. Instead, she said, "Marcus, I read the whole document. I read it twice." A pause. "The birthday gift card. I didn't know about that one." Another pause. Longer. "I'd like to talk. Not tonight, but I want to talk." She said, "I want to talk." The way someone says it when they're not asking for an explanation. They're asking for a conversation. There's a difference. Diane came home at 9:15. She had missed 22 calls across 6 family members spread over 3 states. She had texts from people who had met me twice. She had a DM from a complete stranger in the Louisville Parents Facebook group who wanted her to know they were rooting for the kid's dad. No offense. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table. She didn't yell. I had emotionally prepared for yelling. She just looked tired in the specific way of someone who has read something they can't unread. She said, "Where did you even get stamps for 47 envelopes?" I said, "We have a postage meter at the office." She said, "Of course you do." Then she put her face in her hands, not dramatically, just genuinely, deeply, humanly overwhelmed. And then she said something I hadn't prepared for at all. She said, "The swim party thing with the floats. I remember that day." I didn't think Caleb noticed. "He noticed," I said. "He always notices. He just doesn't say anything because he's already learned that saying something doesn't change anything." She looked up. "When did he learn that?" I said, "I don't know, but he did." That was the conversation, not the 47 copies. That one. The quiet one at 9:15 p.m. at my own kitchen table. That's the one that actually mattered. We didn't get married. I need to say that plainly. I called off the engagement 3 weeks later. It wasn't a fight. It was one long, sad, honest conversation in the evening that felt nothing like a movie and exactly like real life. It wasn't only the tickets, though the tickets were the moment everything became undeniable. It was 14 months of watching someone I loved be carefully, consistently, just slightly less toward my son than he deserved. And then watching her not quite understand, even in that final conversation, why that was the thing I couldn't recover from. She cried. I cried a little too. We had been happy real amounts of the time. That's also true. I took Caleb to get pancakes the morning after. He didn't know the specifics. He's 8. He didn't need them. I told him that Diane wasn't going to be coming around anymore, that things had changed. He ate half a pancake. He was quiet for a moment, then he looked up at me with his fork in his hand and said completely seriously, "Dad, it's okay. You tried. You tried." Like a 40-year-old man who has learned something important about love being an action and not just a condition. I had to study the menu for about 25 seconds. Janelle, at work, framed a printed copy of the cover page of the Caleb Exclusion Index and hung it above her desk. She did not tell me she did this. I found out because a client walked through the shop floor, saw it, and asked what it was. Janelle said, "A masterpiece." The client, apparently satisfied with this answer, moved on. I have not asked Janelle to take it down. I'm not sure I ever will. In the months after, here's what I can tell you is true. Caleb started being more himself on pickup days. Just easier. The particular background hum of monitoring, of calibrating, of checking whether today was a welcome day or a tolerated one, that was gone. He started making more jokes. He started bringing friends home more. He asked if we could get a fish, and we got a fish. And the fish is named Gerald. And Gerald has thrived. Carol and I had coffee in October. 45 minutes, awkward in places, genuine in others. She said, "I didn't see it," for a long time. Then she said, "The report helped." We both laughed. It was real laughter. She told me she'd been thinking a lot about Tyler, too. About whether all that centering had actually been good for him. Whether they'd done him any favors by making him the son. That wasn't a conversation I expected to have with her. It was the right one. Diane texts occasionally. Civil. Specific. Last month, she told me she'd started family therapy. I texted back, "That's genuinely good." And I meant every word of it. I hope she gets there. I hope she figures out what she was doing and why, and what she wants to be instead. I genuinely do. Are we healed? No. Caleb still gets quiet sometimes in ways that tell me he's circling back to something. I still carry the weight of having watched 14 months of small things and not said something sooner. There is no clean version of this story where everybody did everything right. That version doesn't exist. But last Saturday, Caleb and I went to Kings Island. Just the two of us. We rode every coaster he pointed at. On the big one, the first drop, he screamed so loud and so completely that a teenager in the seat next to him turned and gave him an unprompted fist bump. We ate everything you're not supposed to eat. We stayed until the lights came on. I bought the ride photos. There's one on the coaster. Caleb's eyes are enormous. His mouth is wide open. His robot shirt is flattened back by the wind. He looks terrified and entirely, completely alive. I have it on my desk right now. I'm looking at it. That is the whole story. If any piece of it felt familiar to you, if you've ever watched someone you love get quietly, carefully passed over, and stood there holding all of it, trying to figure out what the right move was, I just want you to know, eventually, you're allowed to say something. In whatever format feels honest to you. Even if that format turns out to be 31 pages, cream cover stock, comb binding, 47 copies, priority mail with tracking. Janelle sends her regards. If you made it this far with me, I'm grateful. Hit the like if this meant something to you. It genuinely helps more than you know. Drop your miscounted moment in the comments. The thing someone said that sounded small but wasn't. I read every single one. Thank you for being here.